Hildegard is the follow-up game to the excellent Spire's End by Favro. Now this isn't a sequel, but it is set within the same universe of the first game, and in this one you're going to be helping Hildegard, one of the playable characters from the first game, in her own adventure in the wilderness. Now throughout the game you're going to be unveiling cards much in the same way as the first one from a 400 card story deck. But from time to time you will reveal cards in this horizontal format, and this is a combat encounter, or face-off as it's known in the game. So whenever you see cards like this, then you'll know it's combat time. And in this video I'm going to talk you through how combat works, how the dice and various mechanics play out. So before we get into the face-off itself, we're going to look at some of the components. So these are the shot dice, which I actually made as prototypes in an earlier video. So if you want to see how I laser engrave those, do check out the playlist, and I'll put a link up here. So we have our shot dice and wild shot dice. I'll come on to those in a short while. We have the story deck, which is the actual adventure through which you play through, and it looks like the next part of the story is one of the fishing holes. So I'm actually going to cover how the fishing mechanic works in the game in the next video. We have the face-off cards themselves, and we can tell these are face-off, of course, because they're in the horizontal format, like everything else, which is in a portrait format. And we have Hildegard, the playable character. Now, this is a place where you can track her inventory, and you can also track via these yellow cubes her feats of marksmanship, which are like an in-game currency, if you like, which can be spent to execute new, exciting skills which allow you to defeat your enemies and achieve other in-game effects. So we're going to be trying to knock out the crows by collecting 8 bullseyes with our slingshot, and we're going to track those with the red markers. At the same time, the crows are going to be trying to attack us, and they're going to be trying to fill up this bullseye meter, and if they fill up the bullseye meter all the way to the end, then they have defeated us and we would follow the lose outcome. If we beat the crows, we follow the win outcome and the story advances. Now the black cubes are used for blocks, which we will cover as part of this playthrough, and it's possible to cover up some of these squares so when the crows attack they will be unsuccessful if we've managed to block one of their squares. So that covers the components, so let's get into the basic gameplay. So we are going to be rolling these shot dice to try and achieve 8 bullseyes to knock the crows out, and in order to do that we can form a bullseye either through a circle with a dot in the middle, 2 black half bullseyes, or 2 white half bullseyes, or depending on the challenge, 1 of each. And we can also form a bullseye through the 2 bracketed halves plus a dot, and any of those can in theory form a bullseye. However, there's been a clever bit of game design, which is each enemy and each encounter only permits the use of certain size, which has allowed Greg to sort of tailor the probability of you achieving bullseyes for each scenario. So in this particular one you can have the black half, the white bracket I'm going to call it, and the white dot. So the circles are in effect useless in this scenario. So what happens if you roll something you don't like? Well, you can finesse the roll, and that means you can basically, once you've locked in a dice, which you have to do every roll, or set as it's known, you can re-roll your others, working towards gaining the results that you want. After each set you will roll the wild shot dice, which has usually good events, it's got some blanks, and it's also got the odd misfire, which of course is bad, and we'll come on to that. So with the basics covered, let's have a final look at the cards and get into our playthrough and see if we can beat these crows. So Hildegard has an accuracy of 4, so that means she'll be using 4 of the wild shot dice. The crows have an accuracy of 3, they'll be using 3. Now at the end of each of our set, which is once we've finalised all of our 4 dice, we roll a wild shot dice. The enemy in the face-off doesn't do that. Now if we beat the crows, we achieve these 8 bullseyes, then we gain a feat of marksmanship, which we can spend later on in the game as a reward. But I think with that we've got enough to get in, and you'll see how the bullseye meter works. So unless otherwise stated, Hildegard goes first, so let's get started. So I'm trying to get a bullseye. So my first tactical choice is, what do I lock in? I know that I can probably keep these. I'm going to lock those 2 in. This may come in useful, so I'm actually going to lock 3 dice in, and I'm going to finesse that. It didn't help me, so I have to lock something every single turn. So I'm locked out now, and I finish my set, having not achieved a bullseye yet, by rolling a blank on the wild shot dice. No good. So it passes to the crow's turn. They roll their 3 dice. And the golden rule is if they can use it, they have to lock it. So what they're trying to achieve is to score in numerical order each of these symbols. So a white double bracket first, black double bracket next, and so on. So in this case, out of the 3 dice, theoretically this one could be used in the 3rd. So we're going to keep that, lock that in, and we're going to finesse these 2. A dot is no good. So we've got to lock something, it doesn't matter which. And we'll roll that. The crows have missed. Now what you might notice above the bullseye meter is these blank squares. And this allows me to place a block which prevents the crows from hitting. It's almost like, think of it like armour. If the crows were to roll a black double there, it would take it off rather than scoring a hit. So Hildegard's turn. Let's move on to see what we can get. Oh, nice. Oh, can't use that because the circle isn't in the list of permitted sides. So I'm going to finesse the others, and we score our first bullseye. I'll keep that. So I've locked that in, and let's see what happens on the wild shot. And I get a misfire. So the misfire means that we have to discard one of our locked dice. So in this case, I'm going to discard that. It's doing nothing, and we score our first bullseye. And we're going to pass to the crow's turn now. So the crow's up, and they have scored their first hit. Now, what this means is it triggers the wild keyword, which means that I may re-roll on the end of my next set, my wild shot dice. So that's almost like a reward, if you will, at the start. Later on, it activates the Tame keyword, which means for one set I actually don't get a wild shot dice. So they've scored the first hit. And now, with the blanks above and my next turn, I can think about applying some of the blocks in place. These grey symbols here can't be blocked, so I haven't worried about the blocks until this stage. So they have scored the first hit. Neither of these 2 can be used, so they have to be re-rolled. That could potentially be used. So if I get a black double, then this is bad news. Now I'm not applying the red hit there because the bullseye meter has got to be filled up in ascending numerical order. So thankfully the crows have missed, which means this isn't filled, and as a result the circle isn't filled either. And play passes back to me. And I'm going to start thinking about blocking now. So let's see what we can get. Right. Oh, now this is where this shot dice mechanic is brilliant, and I've played this through a few times and I absolutely love it. Even though it's so simple and quick to learn, there's some real tactical choices here. So part of me is thinking I'm going to block that straight away and I will give myself some protection, but actually I have formed a bullseye as permitted by these sides. So my choice is, do I go on the defensive or the offensive? And I think having already scored one bullseye, I'm going to keep that. Let's see what else we can get. And then we got away with it. So I'm going to block that, place that there, and I get a dot. So we'll roll our wild shot dice, hopefully avoid the misfire this time. Nothing happens, so I've applied my block, which I really should do at the end, and I'll apply my bullseye. Over to the crows. So they've scored a black double, so that removes that, and we re-roll here because none of these can be used. So circle could potentially be used, and if we get another black double we're in trouble. Thankfully not. We're okay, so our block works very nicely indeed. I'll play through a couple more rounds and see if any other features come up here. So that's going to be getting re-rolled. I'm going to lock in all, am I going to lock in all these guys? So I'm holding out for a dart. Choices. I'm going to finesse these two and hope that I can get one dart. Apply my block there. And you've got to lock something in every turn. So I've locked that in and I rolled blank. So with the block in, it's a crow's turn. And this is going to repeat. Nothing yet, but that could theoretically be used. As could that. Nothing happens from the crows. So that is a summary of the shot dice mechanic. It works really nicely. It resolves very quickly. Once you've played it through, even for one encounter, one face-off, it becomes absolutely second nature. And there's some real, meaty choices in there between playing on the defense or the offense. And it's amazing just how quickly your enemy in the face-off can fill up that bullseye meter if the rolls are going against you. So if you want to see more of these videos, do click, there should be a playlist here which you can click on, but in the next one I'm going to be going through how the fishing works, which shows you that it's not just a combat game, it's an immersive story, and this is something that I just haven't seen in a game before. So do stay tuned and I'll see you in the next video.